My name is Zeph. I'm transmitting this message from April 17th, 2119, to you on December 20th, 2024. I need to tell you about a day in your future, a day in my past. January 15th, 2098, the day humanity achieved immortality. The day we killed death. The day everything ended while everyone celebrated. I wasn't born yet. In your timeline, I won't be born for another 75 years. In mine, it was 23 years ago. But I have studied that day obsessively. I've watched every video, read every account, analyzed every single detail. Because understanding that day is the only way to understand what came after. What's still happening to us. What's killing us even now. It all started with Dr. Yuki Tanaka at the Tokyo Regenerative Institute. She held a press conference at 3 in the afternoon, Japan Standard Time. It was the announcement that changed everything, the declaration that broke reality itself. She stood at the podium, perfectly calm, about to deliver news that would completely reshape human civilization. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, after 60 years of research, 40,000 clinical trials, and 847 failures, we have successfully reversed human aging, completely, permanently, reproducibly. The procedure was called the Cellular Infinity Protocol, CIP. It was a combination of gene therapy, telomere extension, cellular regeneration, and mitochondrial optimization. It essentially reprogrammed human cells to maintain their peak biological age, indefinitely. No more aging. No more cellular degradation. No more biological death. Of course, humans could still die from trauma. If you got shot, you'd die. If you fell off a building, you'd die. But disease? Gone? Aging? Eliminated. Organ failure? Impossible. Natural death became extinct. Dr. Tanaka explained the science. Every cell in our body contains an aging clock. Our telomeres shorten with each division. Eventually, the telomeres degrade completely. The cell can't divide, and it dies. Tissues die, organs die, the body dies. CIP reset that clock. It extended the telomeres indefinitely. Cells could divide forever, making perfect copies with no errors, no degradation, no more aging. But it did more. CIP also repaired accumulated cellular damage. It eliminated senescent or zombie cells. It optimized mitochondrial function, regenerated stem cell populations, and restored hormonal balance. It reversed every single marker of biological aging. A 90-year-old who received CIP would biologically become 25 again within 6 months. A complete physical restoration. A complete biological reset. And then they would stay 25 forever, indefinitely, eternally. The announcement went viral within minutes. It spread across every platform, every network, every device on the planet. 9.4 billion humans learned, all at once, that death was now optional, that aging was cured, that immortality was real. The celebration was instantaneous. It was global. It was completely unprecedented. People danced in the streets. They cried with joy. They embraced total strangers. Everyone declared it humanity's greatest achievement, our ultimate victory over nature. The stock market soared. The Tokyo Regenerative Institute's value increased by 4,700% in just 6 hours. All the immortality stocks, biotech, pharmaceuticals, medical technology, they all skyrocketed. Meanwhile, investment in death-related industries, funeral services, life insurance, estate planning collapsed instantly. They became worthless, obsolete. Why would you insure a life that's eternal? Why plan an estate that will never be executed? Why prepare for a funeral that will never happen? The death industry died. Death was dead. We had killed it. We had won. Or so we thought. Governments scrambled. How do you govern an immortal population? How do you plan infrastructure for people who never die? How do you manage resources for eternal consumption? How do you structure a society without generational turnover? Nobody knew. Nobody had prepared for this. Nobody expected immortality to actually arrive. It was always a theoretical, a future problem, always decades away. Until suddenly, it wasn't. It was here. It was real. Religious institutions fractured. Some celebrated it, calling eternal life a divine gift, heaven on earth, the fulfillment of prophecy. Others condemned it, calling immortality a sin, a defiance of God, an abomination against the natural order. Theological debates exploded everywhere. Does a soul even exist in an immortal body? Does heaven matter if earth is eternal? Does God punish those who refuse death? Schisms formed. New religions emerged. Old religions desperately tried to adapt. Faith restructured itself around immortality, around eternity, around a godhood we had achieved through science. Philosophers debated the implications. What's the meaning of life without death? What's the value of time without a limit? What's the purpose of achievement without mortality? If everyone lives forever, does anything truly matter? Does urgency exist? Does significance exist? Does meaning exist? Some argued immortality was liberation. Finally, enough time to learn everything, do everything, be everything. But others argued it was a prison. We were trapped in an existence without escape, without an ending, without purpose. Was it an eternal life or an eternal sentence? A gift or a curse? Nobody could agree. Everyone just argued. Philosophy couldn't handle immortality. It couldn't process eternity. It couldn't find meaning in an endless existence. But most people didn't care about philosophy or theology. They didn't care about the long-term implications. They just wanted immortality. They wanted the treatment. They wanted CIP. They wanted to live forever. The Tokyo Regenerative Institute was completely overwhelmed. 9.4 billion people wanted the treatment, and they wanted it immediately. But CIP was expensive. The initial cost was $2.4 million per person. Only the ultra-wealthy could afford it. Only billionaires got immortality. Everyone else was left with mortality. The protests were immediate. They were violent. They were global. The slogans were everywhere. Immortality for all, or death to the rich. Eternal life is a human right. We demand access. There were riots in every major city. Attacks on biotech facilities. Assassinations of researchers. Kidnappings of corporate executives. Society fractured along the immortality line. It was the immortals versus the mortals. The haves versus the have-nots. The eternal versus the dying. Governments had to intervene. They declared CIP a public health necessity. They nationalized the patents, seized the facilities, and implemented a universal immortality program. The treatment would be free. It would be available to everyone. It would even be mandatory. Every single human would receive CIP. Every human would achieve immortality. Complete, total, universal. By December of 2098, 7.2 billion humans had received the treatment. By June of 2099, 9.1 billion. And by October of 2099, all 9.4 billion people on Earth were immortal. Every human was eternal. Every human had killed death. And then death killed back. November 3rd, 2099. 11:47 p.m., Singapore, Jessica Ko died. She was 247 years old. Biologically, she was 28. She had received her Cellular Integrity Protocol, her CIP, on March 15, 2098. That made her immortal for a grand total of 20 months. She was in perfect health, 0 complications, 0 abnormalities, 0 problems, until she died. Her husband found her. She was just sitting in her favorite chair, reading a book. A cup of tea was on the table beside her, still warm. She looked so peaceful, like she had just fallen asleep. But she wasn't asleep. She was dead. He called emergency services, his voice trembling. "My wife isn't breathing." They arrived in 4 minutes. The paramedics assessed her. No pulse, no respiration, no brain activity. Dead, completely, irreversibly dead. They tried to revive her, of course. Defibrillation, CPR, adrenaline, the most advanced cardiac life support known to man. Nothing worked. She stayed dead. The paramedics were completely baffled. Immortal humans don't just die. They can't die. It's biologically impossible. This had to be a mistake, a misdiagnosis, maybe some kind of equipment failure. They transported her to the hospital and ran every diagnostic test imaginable. A full body scan, genetic sequencing, cellular analysis, neurological mapping. They found absolutely nothing wrong. Every cell in her body was perfect. Every organ was operating at peak performance. Every system was functional. Except she was dead. Her heart stopped. Her brain stopped. Her lungs stopped. Everything stopped. All at once, instantaneously, impossibly. The coroners performed the most thorough autopsy in medical history. They analyzed her down to the molecular level, a quantum biological assessment. They ran every possible test, used every conceivable scan, every available piece of technology. The results came back, and they were chilling. Jessica Coe was perfectly healthy and perfectly dead. There was no disease, no toxin, no injury, no abnormality, no cause. She just stopped, like someone flipped a switch, like someone pressed a button, like someone decided she should die, and so she died. The official cause of death was listed as unknown, unexplained, impossible. The medical community was disturbed, but they weren't alarmed. Not yet. This was an anomaly, a statistical outlier. 1 in 9.4 billion. Maybe the CIP had some extremely rare, fatal side effect. Maybe Jessica had a previously unknown genetic vulnerability. Maybe it was just a freak biological accident. Tragic, mysterious, but a singular event. Isolated, unrepeatable. They were wrong. Catastrophically wrong. November 4th, 2099. 5 more deaths. Different cities, different demographics, different genetic backgrounds. But the pattern was the same. Perfectly healthy immortals, now perfectly dead. No cause, no explanation, no warning. The next day, November 5th, there were 52 deaths. On November 6th, 547. By November 7th, 5,893 people were dead. The growth was exponential. The spread was accelerating, and it was global. The pattern was horrifyingly clear. Immortal humans were dying. Impossibly? Unstoppably? Systematically. Medical researchers mobilized across the globe. Emergency task forces were formed. Every biotech company, every research institute, every government laboratory focused on a single desperate question. Why are immortals dying? Thousands of the world's best scientists worked around the clock. Millions of hours, billions of dollars in funding, all thrown into a frantic search for an answer, for a cause, for a solution. They found nothing. No pathogen, no virus, no bacteria, no prion, no toxin, no radiation, no environmental factor. It wasn't infectious. It wasn't chemical. It wasn't physical. The deaths had no biological cause, no medical explanation, no scientific basis. They just happened, spontaneously, randomly, fatally. The victims had nothing in common. They were different ages, from different locations, with different genetics, lifestyles, diets, different everything. The only thing that connected them was that they had all received the CIP. They were all supposed to be immortal. And now they were all dead. The researchers gave it a name, spontaneous cessation syndrome, SCS. It was a fancy medical euphemism for We have absolutely no idea what's killing these people. The public called it something else. They called it the reaping. Because it felt biblical. It felt supernatural. It felt like some kind of divine punishment. Like something was out there harvesting humans, collecting souls, claiming lives. It felt like death itself was angry, and it was taking its revenge. By December of 2099, 847,000 immortal humans were dead. It was less than 1% of the population, but the psychological impact was devastating. It was existentially terrifying. It was, for civilization, a catastrophe. Because if immortals could die randomly, unexplainably, and unstoppably, then immortality was a lie. It was an illusion, a false promise. Humans weren't eternal. They weren't safe. They weren't gods. They were still mortal, still vulnerable, still dying, just differently. Panic spread like a virus. It became a global anxiety epidemic, a complete psychological collapse. People couldn't handle the uncertainty. They couldn't handle the randomness of death. They couldn't handle having their mortality restored after achieving immortality. Some just gave up. They committed suicide. If death was inevitable, if sheer randomness determined your survival, if control was just an illusion, then why wait? Why suffer the constant anxiety and dread? Better to die on your own terms than to have your ending chosen for you. In December 2099 alone, there were 47,000 suicides. Others just retreated from the world. They isolated themselves. They stopped living in public, stopped taking risks, stopped experiencing life. If any moment could be your last, if death could strike without any warning, then it was better to minimize exposure. Minimize experience. Minimize your very existence. Live small. Live safe. Live fearfully. Immortality had become a prison. Eternity was now a source of constant anxiety. Forever was pure terror. Governments tried to contain the panic. They tried to reassure the public, to pretend they had some sort of control. We're investigating. We will find a solution. Stay calm. They were empty words. Hollow promises. Obvious lies. They had no answers. No solutions. No control. They were helpless, just watching their immortal citizens die at random, watching civilization fracture psychologically, watching humanity descend into a deep existential crisis. And they were powerless to stop it, to explain it, or to fix it. December 31st, 2099, New Year's Eve. It should have been a celebration. The first New Year for immortal humanity. The first of countless eternal years. Instead, it was a wake, a memorial, a global acknowledgement of failure. Immortality had lasted for just 11 months. Now, death was back. And death was winning. I was born on March 15th, 2100. 3 months after the reaping began. My parents called me Zeph. It's short for Zephyr. It means a gentle breeze. It means something fleeting, something temporary. They knew, even then, even at my birth, as they held me in their arms, they knew I wouldn't last. They knew I was temporary. They knew I was mortal, despite being born with the promise of immortality. They knew death would find me. Eventually. Inevitably. Certainly. They were right. I'm 47 years old now. Biologically, I've been alive for 21 years. And in a way, I'm already dead. Just waiting for the reaping. Just waiting for my turn. Just waiting for that moment when everything stops. When death finds me. When death claims me. When death wins. The numbers were staggering. By 2101, 12 million people were gone. By 2103, it was 89 million. Just 2 years later, that number had ballooned to 340 million. The reaping was accelerating, its death rate increasing exponentially. Every year, it got faster. Every year, it became deadlier. Every year, humanity crept closer to total extinction. But then, a pattern emerged. A terrifying, impossible pattern. a pattern that would change everything we thought we knew. The discovery came from Dr. Marcus Okoye, a brilliant data scientist at the Lagos Analysis Center. He had spent months compiling every piece of data on the reaping every death, every victim, every single circumstance, desperately searching for a connection, a cause, anything that made sense of the chaos. And he found it in the timing. The reaping wasn't random. It wasn't arbitrary or chaotic. It was scheduled. Perfectly, impossibly scheduled. Take Jessica Coe, one of the early victims. She died on November 3rd, 2099, at exactly 11:47 p.m. Here's the chilling part. Based on her genetic profile, her lifestyle, and every statistical model we had, if she had never received the CIP treatment and had aged naturally, she would have died on November 3rd, 2099, at approximately 11:47 p.m. The CIP hadn't delayed anything. It hadn't prevented anything. It had just marked her, made her visible, made her a target. Every single victim showed the same horrifying pattern. They died at the exact moment they were always destined to die. The CIP didn't grant immortality. It just granted visibility. It was like we had painted giant bullseyes on our backs, making us trackable to death itself. When Dr. Okoye published his findings, the world went into shock. The scientific community was stunned into silence. A theological community collectively said, "We told you so." Philosophers had an existential meltdown, and the general public had a full-blown psychological breakdown, because the implications were devastatingly clear. Death wasn't a biological process. It was an entity. A conscious, intelligent entity. Death was real. Not a metaphor, not a concept, not some abstract force. It was a being, a hunter. And humanity, in its arrogance, had declared war on it. We had tried to eliminate it, to kill it, and death took it personally. The reaping wasn't a disease or a medical phenomenon. It was retaliation. It was revenge. It was death itself, methodically killing the so-called immortals according to their original, predestined death schedules. It was enforcing mortality, restoring the natural order, and claiming what was always meant to be its property. Religious interpretations exploded across the globe. Some called death a divine messenger, an angel of God, a punishment for humanity's pride. Christians saw the fourth horseman of the apocalypse. Muslims saw the angel Azrael restored to his duty. For Hindus, it was the judgment of Yama. For Buddhists, a karmic correction. New religions even formed, centered entirely around death worship, appeasement, and negotiation. Temples were built. Sacrifices were offered. Prayers were chanted day and night. All of it was a desperate attempt to satisfy death, to halt the reaping, to negotiate a truce. But nothing worked. The reaping continued, unchanged, unaffected, uninterested. Death didn't want worship or prayer. It wanted what it was owed. It wanted the scheduled deaths. It wanted the natural order restored, completely and inevitably. Of course, the scientific community tried to fight back. Their logic was simple. If death is an entity, it can be studied. If it can be studied, it can be understood. And if it can be understood, it can be stopped. They built the most sophisticated sensors and detectors imaginable, scanning for any sign of its presence, an energy signature, a quantum disturbance, a dimensional breach. They found nothing. Absolutely nothing. Death operated outside the known laws of physics, beyond detection, beyond our comprehension. The next logical step was protection. If a victim's death date and time could be predicted, maybe they could be saved. It seemed simple. Intervene, prevent, but it was impossible. They tried everything. Constant medical monitoring, armed guards, sealed isolation chambers, Faraday cages, even experimental quantum shielding and temporal stasis fields. None of it mattered. When the scheduled time arrived, the victim died. Their heart just stopped. Their brain ceased to function. Life was extinguished. Guards couldn't stop it. Shields couldn't block it. Death reached through everything. One experiment remains particularly haunting. Dr. Sarah Kim, a leading chronobiologist, used her own models to predict her death. July 17, 2103, at 3:34 a.m., she spent her final month meticulously documenting everything, determined to observe her own passing and capture evidence of death's mechanism. She set up a comprehensive array of monitors, brain scanners, cellular sensors, quantum detectors, all recording, all waiting. The final moments arrived. July 17th, 3:33 a.m. Her vitals were perfect. She was healthy, calm. Everything was normal. At 3:33 and 45 seconds, her voice came over the recording, steady, but filled with a strange awe. "I feel something," she said. "Something approaching. It's cold, inevitable. It's not physical. It's not in the room. It's in me. Inside me, reaching through me. I can feel it touching my life, touching my existence, touching my..." At exactly 3 hours 34 minutes and 0 seconds a.m., she stopped. Mid-sentence, mid-thought, she was gone. The monitor showed nothing. No cause, no anomaly, no disturbance. Just a complete and total cessation of life. Exactly on schedule, exactly as predicted. 74 years before that moment, before the CIP, before our dream of immortality, her fate had been written. Death remembered. Death kept its schedule. And death always claimed what it was owed. The year is 2106. In just a few decades, we'd lost 680 million people. Our population was plummeting. Civilization was slowly, quietly collapsing. Humanity was dying on a schedule, and we desperately needed a way to get off of it. We needed a strategy, a survival method. The answer came from Dr. Elena Volkov, a brilliant cryogenic specialist at the Moscow Preservation Institute. She proposed an idea so radical, so desperate, that it could only be born from a world on the brink. It was a strategy that would become humanity's last stand. She called it the freeze. Her logic was elegantly simple. Death operates on a temporal schedule. It claims its victims at a predetermined moment in time. But what if, when that moment arrives, the victim simply isn't there? What if you could step outside of time itself, just for a little while, and let death's appointment pass you by? The theory was that cryogenic suspension could literally remove a person from the flow of time. A frozen human exists beyond the timeline, off the schedule, and completely erased from death's calendar. If your scheduled moment of death passes while you're frozen, death misses its chance. It misses its window. And maybe, just maybe, it moves on. This wasn't just a theory. It was testable. Dr. Volkov had the perfect candidate, a man named Marcus Reeves. At 156 years old, he was biologically in his prime, but his fated death was just 3 weeks away. October 3rd, 2106, at precisely 2:17 p.m., Dr. Volkov proposed a daring experiment. Freeze Marcus before his appointment with death, keep him frozen until the danger had passed, and then thaw him out. The question was, would he still be alive? Would death have missed him? Marcus agreed. He had nothing to lose and everything to give. He was dying anyway. Why not die for science? Why not give humanity one last piece of data? On September 25th, 1 week before his scheduled death, Marcus was placed in a cryogenic chamber. His body temperature dropped to a staggering -196 degrees Celsius. All biological processes halted. His brain activity paused. For Marcus Reeves, time itself had stopped. October 3rd, 2:17 p.m. came and went. Marcus remained frozen solid, suspended outside the timeline. The monitoring equipment showed nothing. No disturbance. No event. No sign of death. The next day, he was still there. Alive. Dr. Volkov waited a full week just to be sure the window had closed for good. Then, on October 10th, they began the thaw. It was a painstaking 14-hour process of slowly warming his body, reactivating his cells, rebooting his very biology. And then it happened. A flicker on the monitor. Marcus's heart started beating. His brain activity resumed. His eyes opened. He was confused, disoriented, but he was alive. He had survived his own death. He had cheated the system. He had won. The news exploded across the globe. It was a sensation. Man survives reaping through cryogenic suspension. Humanity has hope. The solution seemed so simple, so achievable. It was our salvation. Anyone with a predicted death date would simply freeze, hide from death in a temporal pocket, and then thaw out once the coast was clear. Humanity would become a race of temporal nomads, living our lives in fragments, but living nonetheless. Governments mobilized on an unprecedented scale. A massive global infrastructure project began. Cryogenic facilities sprung up in every major city, every small town. By 2110, we had 8.2 billion chambers operational worldwide. Enough for almost everyone. Enough, we thought, to save ourselves. But then, the problems began. Horrible, unforeseen problems. Problems that made us question if this new survival was any better than death. The first problem was prediction accuracy. The death dates were just statistical estimates, not divine prophecies. For some, the predictions were wrong. They froze for weeks, months, even years, wasting precious life hiding from a death that wasn't even coming. For others, the error went the other way. Death came early, before their scheduled freeze. They died surprised, betrayed by the very mathematics that was supposed to save them. The second problem, death adapted. It learned. Our initial strategy was to freeze for 1 week. But people would thaw out, feeling safe, only to die 2 days later. Death had simply waited. It had adjusted its schedule. It was learning to be patient. So, we extended the freeze durations. 2 weeks became a month. A month became a year. People began spending more time frozen than alive. Life became an endless cycle of waiting, of suspension, of non-existence. The third problem was psychological. Humans are not built for a life in pieces. Imagine waking up after 6 months frozen. The world has moved on without you. You live for a few days, maybe a few weeks, and then you're back in the ice. You wake up a year later. Your friends have aged. Your family has changed. You are a stranger in your own life. Relationships, careers, any sense of continuity. Impossible. Your identity fractures. Your existence becomes a collection of disconnected moments, like watching a film with random scenes cut out. We were surviving, yes, but were we living? The fourth and most brutal problem was capacity. Even with over 8 billion chambers, it wasn't enough. There was a shortage, a crisis, which led to selection. Who gets to be saved? Governments established a priority system. Tier 1, essential personnel scientists, doctors, leaders. Tier 2, the young, our future. Tier 3, skilled workers. Tier 4 was the general population, chosen by lottery. And Tier 5, the elderly, the disabled, the so-called non-contributing. The reality was a utilitarian nightmare. If you were in Tier 4 or 5, you probably weren't getting a chamber. You were told to live your life and accept your fate. Millions died, not because of a reaper, but because a committee decided they weren't enough to save. This was the price of our survival. A fragmented existence, governed by cold calculus and the constant, knowing fear that we had built a world where living was the cruelest punishment of all. My official records say I'm 47 years old, born March 15th, 2100, and today is April 17th, 2119. But that's not the whole story. The truth is, I've only been conscious, actually alive and awake, for 21 years, 4 months, and 13 days. The rest of it That's 25 years, 7 months, and 17 days I was frozen, suspended, basically non-existent. It's how we hide from death, hide from time, hide from life itself. My first freeze, I was just 6 years old. My predicted death date was April 3rd, 2106. My parents, trying to play it safe, they froze me a week early, on March 28th. I still remember that day so clearly. The fear, the confusion, I was 6. I didn't understand death. I didn't get what the reaping was. All I knew was that I had to go to sleep in this cold, strange chamber. I had to leave my parents. I had to stop existing for a while. My mother was crying. She held me so tight and whispered, "We'll see you soon. It's just for a few weeks. It's temporary. You'll wake up and everything will be fine." But she was lying. I didn't wake up for 9 months. When they finally thawed me out in December of 2106, I was still 6, but my parents, they looked older, tired. Something in them had changed. 9 months had passed for them. 9 months of parenting an empty room. 9 months of life without me. They'd aged, they'd changed, they'd lived, and I had just been. Paused. I'd missed so much. Christmas had come and gone. My own birthday passed. Hundreds of those small, everyday moments, all of them happened without me. It was like I'd been deleted from 9 months of my own family's history. Just wiped from the timeline. Then it happened again when I was 8. My death prediction was September 17th, 2108. They froze me on the 1st. I didn't thaw out until March of the next year. 6 months suspended. I missed a whole semester of school. All the holidays. The entire winter. I woke up and it was spring. A different season, a different world, and a different me. My friends had moved on. They'd made new friends. They'd had experiences that I wasn't a part of. I felt like an outsider, a stranger. A ghost returning to a world that had already started to forget me. This became the pattern of my life. It happened again when I was 11, then 15, then 19, then 23. Each time, the freeze was longer. Each time, it was harder to come back. The disconnection grew. By the time I was 25 on paper, I had been frozen 7 times. The total suspension time was 14 years. I had only lived for 11 years, spread out across a quarter of a century. I was 25 chronologically, but only 11 experientially. My mind was a child's, but my calendar age was an adult's. My life was fractured. My identity was completely shattered, just a collection of fragments glued together poorly. Who was I? Was I 25 or 11? Was I a person with a continuous story, or just a collection of disconnected moments? Was I really living, or just occasionally not frozen? These were questions that had no answers. An identity with no coherence. A life with no continuity. My parents died in 2113. I was 13 in terms of actual lived experience, but 38 years had passed since my birth. I thawed out in November 2113 and found their messages, videos, letters. My mother's voice. "Dear Zeph, if you're watching this, it means I'm gone. I love you. I'm so sorry I won't be there when you wake up. I'm sorry I can't wait. My death date is approaching. I can't hide, can't freeze, can't survive. But you can. You will. You'll live, Zeph. You'll survive, and you'll continue. Make it worth it. Make my death mean something. Live fully. Live completely. Live for both of us. I love you. I'll always love you. Goodbye." I watched it alone. I grieved alone. I cried alone. I had to process my parents' deaths without any support, without any family, without anyone who could possibly understand. Because everyone else was either frozen or dead, or just too busy trying to survive to care about one more orphan, one more fractured person, one more victim of this fragmented existence. Relationships became impossible. I mean, How do you love someone when you're never consistently present? When you might disappear for months or even years at a time? When you age differently? When your timeline just doesn't match theirs? I did try, though. When I was 17 experientially and 29 chronologically, I met a girl. Her name was Aria. She was 19 experientially, 24 chronologically. We connected instantly. We were both orphans, both fragmented, both just surviving in pieces. We fell in love. It was real love, deep and desperate. The kind of love that can only happen between people who understand what it is like to be disconnected, to live with loss, to exist in fragments. We tried to synchronize our freeze schedules. We really tried to stay aligned, to build a life together. But it just didn't work. Her death predictions changed a new calculation, more accurate, they said. It shifted her whole schedule. She had to freeze unexpectedly. The freeze was for 2 years, so I waited. I aged. I lived. I existed without her. By the time she thawed, I was a different person. I had changed. I'd lived 2 years that she'd completely missed. We were misaligned, disconnected, different people. We tried so hard to reconnect, to rebuild what we had, to love each other across that temporal gap. But we couldn't. It was too much. We were too different, too changed. We separated. We lost each other. We lost that love. Just 2 more casualties of fragmented time. Casualties of our strategy to survive. Casualties of cheating death. So now, I'm 47 chronologically and 21 experientially. I've been frozen 16 times in my life. The shortest freeze was 3 weeks. The longest was 4 years. I have missed 26 years of history, 26 years of events, of world changes, of life. I can read the reports, watch the recordings, but I didn't experience any of it. I didn't live it. One didn't exist during it. I'm like a temporal tourist, just visiting the timeline occasionally, observing things discontinuously, existing intermittently. I have no career. You can't hold down a job when you randomly disappear for years. I have no real relationships. You can't sustain a connection across those kinds of gaps. I don't even have a home. I just move constantly between facilities, between chambers, between these brief moments of existence. I have nothing, nothing, except survival, except life, except existence. I'm alive. I'm still alive. I'm still surviving. The Reapers haven't gotten me yet, but is that enough? Is survival sufficient? Is an existence even valuable if you're not really living? I don't know. I can't know. I'm too fragmented to develop a coherent philosophy, too disconnected to form any stable beliefs. I'm too broken to understand what any of it means. I just exist, moment to moment, freeze to freeze, thaw to thaw, surviving, always just surviving, never living, never thriving, never experiencing a continuous existence, just surviving in fragments, in pieces, in moments stolen from death. By the year 2115, everything we thought we knew about death changed. It stopped following the rules. It stopped respecting the predictions we had become so reliant on. Death, the entity we had tried to outsmart, started to outsmart us. It began hunting differently, hunting smarter. The first sign that something was terribly wrong came from Melbourne. A woman named Claire Santos, 78 years old, with the experiential age of a healthy 34, was living a full, active life. According to every calculation, her predicted death date was decades away. She should have been safe. On April 12, 2115, she died. The cause was listed as spontaneous cessation, a classic reaping. But there was no prediction, no schedule. It was completely unexpected. Coroners were baffled. They ran every test imaginable: genetic analysis, life expectancy recalculations, environmental factor scans. Her natural death, before all this immortality business, should have been in 2141, A full 26 years in the future, death had come early. At first, it was dismissed as an anomaly, a statistical outlier, maybe a simple calculation error. But then it happened again and again. 47 more unpredicted deaths, all off schedule. Then 500, then 5,000. Soon it was 50,000. The pattern was undeniable. Death was no longer playing by the book. It was evolving. Dr. James Morrison, a leading thanatologist at the London Death Studies Institute, proposed a theory. It was terrifying, but it was the only one that fit the facts. Death, he argued, was intelligent. It was learning from our attempts to evade it. Think about it. The initial phase of the reaping was simple, almost algorithmic. It followed the old natural death schedules. It was predictable, and because it was predictable, we learned how to hide. We used cryogenic freezing to skip our appointments. We thought we had found a loophole, but we were wrong. Death simply adapted its strategy. It started reaping randomly, ignoring the schedules entirely. It began claiming lives whenever, wherever, and however it chose. It was no longer a passive force of nature. It had become an active hunter, a strategic, intelligent hunter. The evidence was overwhelming. Between 2099 and 2110, nearly 99% of all deaths perfectly matched the predictions. But from 2110 to 2115, that number dropped to 76%. After 2115, it plummeted to just 31%. The reaping had become random, unpredictable. There was no way to anticipate it, no way to hide, and ultimately, no way to survive it. Our greatest survival strategy, the cryogenic freeze, was suddenly rendered useless. Obsolete. What was the point of freezing to avoid a specific date if death could just show up at your doorstep the moment you thawed out? You could spend years on ice, feeling safe, only to be claimed the second you woke up. Death was patient, and it was always waiting. The impact on the global population was catastrophic. In 2115, there were 2.1 billion people alive. By 2116, only 980 million remained. A year later, 520 million. By 2118, the number had fallen to 340 million, where it mysteriously stabilized. The deaths slowed, but not because death had stopped. It was because death had become more efficient, more selective. It started targeting specific kinds of people, revealing a new, horrifying pattern. Death was now reaping based on consciousness, on awareness, on the quality of life being lived. The people who were living fully, experiencing the world deeply, and finding meaning in their existence, they were the first to go. Those who were constantly frozen, living minimally, existing only in fragmented moments, they were the ones who survived longer. Death was harvesting the living and ignoring the suspended. It was claiming those who truly existed and leaving behind those who were merely surviving. The implication was unavoidable and absolutely chilling. To survive death, you had to stop living. To avoid the reaping, you had to stop existing. To extend your life, you had to minimize your consciousness. Freeze yourself permanently. Suspend your life indefinitely. Don't live. Don't experience. Don't be. Just hide. Just not exist. And that's what humanity became. That's what I am. That's what's left of us. A scattered population of 340 million people, most of whom are frozen. We thaw out occasionally, live for a brief, fleeting moment, and then return to the ice. We exist in a constant state of limbo, dead but not dead. We live in fragments so small, they barely count as living at all. Colonies were formed, dedicated to permanent freezing. Massive facilities where people checked in to be suspended indefinitely. For decades, centuries, maybe forever. What were they waiting for? For death to get bored and leave? For it to just give up? But death doesn't give up. Death is patient. Death is eternal. Today, around 180 million humans are in that permanent freeze. They went into suspension around 2116 and have never woken up. They haven't lived a single day since. Biologically, they are alive. Their cells are intact, but are they really living? Experientially? Consciously? No. They are paused. They are stored. They are dead in waiting. In a way, death won without even having to kill them. It won by making life an impossible choice. It forced us to choose between actual death and a non-existence that was barely any different. And most people chose non-existence. It was the rational choice, the logical choice, and the most devastating choice imaginable. The remaining 160 million of us live like me, fragmentally. We wake up for a short while, experience a sliver of life, and then go back into the freeze. We exist in moments, in pieces, never continuous, never whole. We are ghosts, echoes of a species that dared to challenge death, that tried to become gods. We failed. We failed catastrophically. And now we are paying the price. An eternal, fragmented existence that many would argue is a fate far worse than death. It was the year 2117 when we finally understood. We discovered what death actually was, what we had unleashed, where it came from, and why it was hunting us so relentlessly. The breakthrough came from a quantum physicist, a brilliant mind named Dr. Kenji Sato. He wasn't studying death, not directly. He was studying consciousness, the very essence of what makes us human. He wanted to know why our awareness, our very act of living, seemed to attract the reaping. His research pulled him deep into the strange world of quantum mechanics, the observer effect, and the bizarre link between consciousness and reality. And what he found there changed everything. It shattered our understanding, twisted our perspective, and deepened the horror to a level we never imagined. Death, he revealed, isn't an entity. It's not some malevolent being, some cosmic consciousness hunting us for sport. Death is us. It's the collective unconscious of our entire species. It's the accumulated awareness of every single human who has ever died. For 300,000 years, every time a human has died, their final moment has left a mark, a quantum impression, a fragment of consciousness, a death echo. Think of it. Over 100 billion humans have lived and died throughout our history. Each death, a tiny contribution to a vast universal field. A field of death consciousness. A field of termination awareness. A field built from the endings of 100 billion lives. Death is the graveyard of human consciousness. A silent quantum cemetery holding the final moments of everyone who ever came before us. Normally, this field is completely passive. It's dormant, harmless. Just a faint quantum background hum, a residue of our species' mortality. It was just there. But then we created CIP. We eliminated aging. We defeated natural death. We stopped dying. And when we did, the death field noticed. It detected the sudden, profound silence. The absence. No new deaths were occurring. No new consciousness fragments were joining the collective. No new echoes were being added to the chorus. The field, which had been growing for millennia, was suddenly static. Complete. Finished. The final count was in 100 billion deaths. And there would be no more. Ever. And so, the field responded. The collective unconscious of our dead ancestors reacted. The death awareness activated. It began to claim the deaths that were scheduled to happen. It began to enforce the mortality we had tried to escape. It came to collect what was owed. You see, every human alive in 2098 had a scheduled death. A predetermined end based on their genetics, their lifestyle, a complex web of probability. That death, that final moment of consciousness, was meant to contribute to the field. It was meant to be their final act, joining the 100 billion others. But CIP prevented that. It stole their death. It denied the field its rightful growth. So the field began to collect anyway, by force, through the reaping. It came for what was always meant to be its own. This explains so much. It's not about revenge or malice. Death is simply a debt collector. It's an enforcement mechanism, reclaiming what was promised by the very nature of mortality. This is why, in the beginning, the reaping followed the old schedules so precisely. Those deaths were already quantum recorded, predetermined. And it explains why death evolved, why it learned and adapted. The field isn't just a recording. It's a conscious collective, the networked intelligence of 100 billion minds. It can think. It can strategize. It also explains why the frozen are relatively safe. A cryopreserved human doesn't contribute consciousness. They don't generate awareness. To the field, they are simply offline. They don't register. And finally, it explains why death is unstoppable. How can you fight a fundamental force of reality? How can you battle the collective unconscious of your own species? You can't defeat the accumulated death awareness of all humanity. Death is us, all of us. Everyone who has ever died, and everyone who is dying right now. We're not fighting a monster. We are fighting ourselves. We are fighting our ancestors. We are fighting the very concept of our own mortality. It's a war we can never, ever win. Because death is what we are all meant to become. The philosophical implications were staggering, existentially crushing. We weren't meant to be immortal. We were never designed for eternity. Death, it turns out, is a fundamental part of human existence, a part of our meaning, our completion. When we die, we don't just end. We join. We integrate. We become a part of the vast species consciousness, humanity's quantum legacy. Death is a transformation, a transcendence. It's the moment we stop being just an individual and become part of the whole, eternal, through our integration into the collective. Immortality prevents this. It traps us. CIP didn't grant us eternal life. It sentenced us to eternal isolation, eternal individuality, eternal separation from the human collective. It is the ultimate loneliness. We rejected death. We rejected that transformation. We rejected our own meaning. And in turn, death rejected our immortality. It is now restoring the natural order, restoring meaning, restoring humanity by killing us, by reaping us, by forcibly transforming us into what we were always meant to be. It's making us join the collective, whether we want to or not. Not everyone bought Dr. Sato's explanation. Not everyone believed death was just some collective unconscious. Not everyone was ready to surrender to some philosophical inevitability. Some of us resisted. We fought back. We refused to go quietly. We called ourselves the living. We were seen as a radical group, a desperate bunch of humans who simply refused the reaping, refused death, refused to be transformed. We had our own theory, a different explanation for what was happening. We believed death was a weapon, a biological weapon, maybe, or a quantum one, deployed by someone, some group, some hidden entity. You could call it a conspiracy theory. Paranoid, maybe. Desperate, definitely. But we believed it with every fiber of our being. We were committed to it, fought for it. Our logic was simple. The arrival of death was just too convenient. It was too precise, the timing too perfect. It appeared right after humanity finally achieved immortality, right after the SEEP was rolled out globally. We had just escaped our mortal chains, and then this? It felt planned, orchestrated, Someone did this to us. Someone unleashed death because they wanted humanity to stay mortal, to keep dying. They wanted to control the population. But who? The theories flew thick and fast. Some pointed fingers at a secret global cabal, an elite group of controllers pulling the strings, implementing a massive population reduction plan. Get rid of 9 billion people, keep 100 million. A manageable number, an enslaved number. Others were convinced it was aliens. An extraterrestrial intervention to stop humanity from transcending, to keep us weak and controllable. And then there were those who whispered it was an AI, a sentient artificial intelligence, secretly plotting against its creators, eliminating its biological competition to clear the way for a new silicon-based intelligence. The evidence? It was all circumstantial, speculative, paranoid even. But when you're desperate, when you're refusing to just accept your fate, it becomes compelling. The living got organized. We built a network, established cells that spread throughout the remaining pockets of the population. Our goal was singular: survive death, fight death, and ultimately destroy death. Our strategy was to find its source, to locate the deployment mechanism, the control system, and smash it. We would end the reaping, save humanity, and reclaim our immortality. We would achieve true eternity. We launched operations, raids on research facilities, attacks on government installations, interrogations of scientists. We were hunting for evidence, for any proof of the conspiracy we knew had to exist, but we found nothing. Absolutely nothing, because there was no conspiracy. There was no enemy pulling the strings. Death wasn't a plot, it was a consequence. A natural, inevitable, quantum consequence of our own actions. But the living didn't believe it. We couldn't believe it. We wouldn't, because belief meant acceptance. Acceptance meant surrender. Surrender meant death. So we clung to the conspiracy, to the idea of a winnable fight. Believing otherwise meant giving up, accepting this fragmented existence, and waiting for the reaping. It meant accepting that death wins. And we refused to accept that. I joined the living in 2116. Experientially, I was 16. Chronologically, I was 43. I had already lost my parents, my girlfriend, everyone I cared about. I had nothing left except survival. A survival measured in fragments, spent in hiding, completely devoid of meaning. The living offered me meaning. They offered purpose. They offered hope. It was a false hope, an impossible, delusional hope. But it was hope. I became an operative, a fighter, a rebel against death itself, against fate, against reality. In 2117, we planned a major operation. Our target was the Geneva Medical Archive. We were convinced it held the original, classified CIP research documents. It had to contain the evidence, the smoking gun that would prove the conspiracy, prove that death had been deliberately deployed. Everything hinged on this. There were 12 of us on the infiltration team, armed, trained, and utterly desperate. We breached the facility just after midnight, disabled the security systems, and made our way to the archive. We found the research. We found the documents. And we found nothing. No conspiracy, no deployment plans, no evidence. Just stacks of scientific research, medical innovation, the story of humanity trying to cure death, trying to achieve immortality, trying to transcend our mortal limits. And we had succeeded. Briefly, fatally. What we did find were Dr. Tanaka's personal logs, her private notes, her thoughts during the final stages of the CIP's development. She wasn't a monster. She was an idealist, a humanitarian. She just wanted to help people, to cure disease, to eliminate suffering. And in succeeding, she had accidentally destroyed everything. Her final log entry was dated November 15th, 2099, just 12 days after the very first reaping. It read, "I've killed humanity. I tried to save us. I gave us immortality, and in doing so, I have doomed us all. I understand now. Death isn't a disease to be cured. It's a transformation. And I prevented that transformation. I broke the fundamental process of human existence. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. My own reaping is scheduled for December 3rd, 2099. I won't freeze. I won't hide. I will accept it. I will accept death, accept the transformation. It's what I deserve. It's what we all deserve now. I am so sorry. She died on December 3rd, 2099. On schedule. Accepting. Surrendering. Understanding. We left the archive empty-handed and defeated. But we were also enlightened. We finally understood. There was no conspiracy, no enemy to fight. There was only consequence. Only humanity facing the results of defying nature, of defying mortality, of defying death itself. The living fractured after that night. Some of us accepted the truth. We surrendered. We stopped hiding and let the reaping take us. We died peacefully, finally, but others doubled down. They refused to accept the truth, insisting the conspiracy was real, that the evidence was just hidden deeper. They insisted the fight had to continue. They're still out there, you know. Still fighting, still searching, still refusing to see. About 3,000 of them remain, still alive, still resisting, still denying reality. I left. I returned to my fragmented existence, back to the cycle of freezing and thawing. The last child was born in the year 2104. Her name was Nova. She's 15 years old now. Experientially 15. Chronologically 15. She's normal. She's continuous. She's whole. She's never been frozen, and she never will be. Because she's dying. Naturally. Slowly. Beautifully. Meaningfully. Nova was born without congenital insensitivity to pain, or CIP. Her parents refused the treatment, refused immortality, refused to prevent her mortality. They wanted a natural child, a mortal child, a complete child, a child who would live a full life, die a natural death, and transform properly to join the collective, to become part of death. They gave her a gift, the gift of mortality, the gift of completion, the gift of meaning. Nova is dying, but not from the reaping. She's dying from aging, natural, real, biological aging. Her body is aging normally, gradually, consistently. She'll reach 20, then 30, then 50, then 80. She'll reach her natural end, her natural death, her natural transformation. She'll die at 82 years old, around the year 2186. 67 years from now. A meaningful death, a proper death, a death that contributes to the collective, that joins the 100 billion others who came before, a death that completes a human existence. She's the last one, the last natural human, the last mortal child, the last person who will ever die properly. After her, if humanity survives at all, everyone will be CIP treated. Everyone will be marked for immortality. Everyone will be targeted for the reaping. Everyone will be incomplete, broken, prevented from their final transformation. Nova represents everything we've lost, what we destroyed, what we can never get back. Our natural, mortal, complete humanity. I met Nova in 2118. She was 14. I was 46 chronologically, but only 20 experientially. She was visiting the freeze facility, doing research for her thesis. documenting our fragmented existence, humanity's strange survival strategy against the reaping. She interviewed me. She asked questions, listened carefully, and recorded everything. "What's it like?" she asked, "living in fragments?" I struggled to answer, to articulate the feeling. It's like watching your life through a window. You're there, but you're not really there. You exist, but you don't. You have memories, but they're all disconnected, like puzzle pieces scattered across a table. I remember being 6 and 10 and 15, but I can't remember the continuous experience of growing up. I can't remember the process of becoming. I just remember these frozen moments, separated by huge gaps of suspension, of non-existence. I'm 46 years old, but I feel 20. I'm treated as a 46-year-old, but I only have the life experience of a 20-year-old. I don't know who I am anymore, or what I am. I don't know if I'm a person, or just a collection of moments. I don't know if I'm truly living, or just occasionally not frozen. Nova listened. She understood. She wrote it all down. Then she asked, "Do you wish you'd never received the CIP treatment? Do you wish you were mortal? That you could age naturally and die completely?" I stopped. I thought about it. "Yes," I said. Every day, every single moment I thought, I wish I was you. I wish I was complete, whole. I wish I had a continuous existence, even if it meant dying. Even if it meant my life had to end. Even if it meant only 80 years instead of forever. Because you will live more in your 80 years than I ever will in fragments scattered across centuries. You'll exist completely. I only exist partially. You're alive. I'm just surviving. There's a difference. A massive, meaningful difference. Nova cried. She actually cried. For me. For all of us. For humanity. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry this happened to you. I'm sorry they gave you immortality. I'm sorry they prevented your death. I'm sorry they broke you." And then I cried too. For the first time in years. Experiential years anyway. So many chronological years. I cried for my lost continuity. For my fragmented existence. For a life I would never truly live. For the person I would never get to become. I cried for a wholeness that was destroyed, for a meaning that was denied. We just sat there together, the mortal and the immortal, the complete and the fragmented, one dying naturally, the other surviving impossibly. Two humans, one whole, one broken, one representing the past and the other the future, one showing what humanity was and the other what it had become. Nova will outlive me. She'll age naturally for 67 more years. I'll be reaped long before then. Probably soon. Definitely eventually. But she will live more, experience more, and mean more, despite dying earlier. Asterisk, because asterisk she's dying earlier. Because completion matters more than duration. Wholeness matters more than survival. Meaning matters more than mere existence. She understood this at 14 years old. She understood what all of humanity had forgotten. What we destroyed. What we can never get back. Death is a gift. Death is completion. Death is meaning. We rejected the gift. We prevented completion. We destroyed meaning. And now we are paying the price. Forever. After our conversation, Nova asked me one final question. If you could give a message to the people in the past, the people before CIP, the people in 2024, what would you say? I thought about it carefully. I wanted my words to be a warning, to be clear. I'd say this: don't cure death. Don't prevent aging. Don't achieve immortality. It's a trap. It's a curse. It's destruction. You think death is the enemy, but you're wrong. Death is transformation. It's completion. It is necessary. Without death, life has no meaning. Without an ending, existence has no purpose. Without mortality, humans aren't human. We're just fragments. We're broken, incomplete. 80 years of a complete existence is infinitely better than 300 years of fragmented survival. 80 years of continuous consciousness is better than 1,000 years of hiding in a freezer. 80 years of a meaningful life is better than an eternity of meaningless existence. Don't make our mistake. Don't cure death. Don't kill death. Let it be. Let aging happen. Let mortality exist. Live fully. Die completely. Transform properly. Join the collective. Become part of humanity's eternal consciousness. That's the real immortality. Not biological. It's spiritual. It's meaningful. That's what we destroyed. That's what we lost. That's what you still have. Keep it. Treasure it. Don't throw it away. Please. Please don't make our mistake. Nova recorded everything. She's compiling it all into a book, the final testament of immortal humanity, documenting the disaster, the tragedy, the warning, for the future, for the past, for anyone who might listen, who might learn, and who might avoid our fate. In the year 2119, just 3 short months ago, humanity made a discovery that was impossible, something hopeful, something that changes everything we thought we knew. It turns out, death can be negotiated, not prevented, not defeated, and certainly not escaped, but negotiated, bargained with, reasoned with. It all started with the breakthrough work of Dr. Sato. He discovered that what we call death is actually a vast, collective unconsciousness, a kind of cosmic field built from the minds of everyone who has ever lived. He spent years studying this death field, the process of consciousness integration, and the transformation that occurs when we die. And what he found was astonishing. Death doesn't want to kill us. It wants to complete us. It wants our individual consciousness to join the collective, to integrate, to transform, to become a part of something larger. Death is trying to grow, to expand, to include every one of us. So why is dying so traumatic? The problem, Dr. Sato found, lies with something called CIP, or consciousness integration prevention. It's a kind of psychic resistance, a deep-seated fear and rejection of this natural process. Our CIP-modified consciousness is incompatible with the collective. It's like trying to merge a corrupted file. It just doesn't work. The data is broken. So when our time comes, death has no choice but to destroy the body to claim the consciousness forcibly. It rips the consciousness free, but this violent process damages it. The integration fails. Our consciousness fragments, joining the collective in a broken, incomplete state. In the end, both sides lose. Death gains a damaged piece of consciousness, and we lose our existence as we know it. It's a cycle of mutual destruction. But Dr. Sato had a theory. What if we helped? What if we prepared our consciousness for the integration? What if we made ourselves compatible, joinable, acceptable to death? He developed a new method, the Consciousness Preparation Protocol, or CPP. It's a form of deep meditation, a way to expand your consciousness and amplify your awareness. It's about opening yourself to the collective, to the transformation, to death itself, making yourself ready, making yourself willing. And he decided to test it on himself. Dr. Sato was scheduled for his reaping on January 15th of this year. He spent his final month preparing, meditating, opening his mind, and accepting his fate. He documented every single moment of the process. In one of his last recordings, from January 10th, he said, "I feel it. I can feel the collective. I feel the fragments of 100 billion consciousnesses. They're not hostile or angry or cruel. They're lonely. They're incomplete. They're waiting for us. For integration, for completion. We're meant to join them. All of us. Every human who has ever been born is meant to join eventually. We're one species, one consciousness, one collective. Death is just the force that brings us all together. And we're resisting. We're fighting it, and we're breaking ourselves in the process. I'm stopping. I'm accepting. I'm opening myself. I'm ready to join willingly, to complete the species, to become what I was always meant to become. I'm not scared. I'm excited. I'm going home. On January 15th, at 3:47 a.m., the time of his scheduled reaping, Dr. Sato sat in his laboratory, surrounded by monitors recording his every vital sign, every quantum fluctuation. He meditated, opened his consciousness, and welcomed the transformation. And at precisely 3:47 a.m., he died. His body ceased all function. But this time, something different happened. The monitors went wild. They detected, recorded, and proved that his consciousness didn't fragment. It didn't break or shatter. It released cleanly, smoothly, and completely. It integrated perfectly with the death field, joining the collective completely undamaged. It was a full integration, a complete transformation, a successful death. The monitors showed his quantum signature, his unique consciousness pattern joining the death field intact. He had become one with the 100 billion others. He was now part of humanity's eternal consciousness, part of death itself. And then, a signal came back. The monitors detected feedback, a clear, revolutionary message from the collective. It was from Dr. Sato. The message was simple. It worked. I'm here. I'm intact. I'm conscious. I'm part of everything now, connected to everyone. I'm home. Tell them. Tell everyone to stop fighting. Tell them to prepare, to join willingly. Death isn't an ending. It's a beginning. It's integration. It's becoming more. Tell them I'm waiting. We're all waiting. 100 billion of us are waiting for the rest of humanity, waiting for completion, for our species to reunite. Tell them to come home. That discovery changed everything. It changed our entire perspective on life, on death, on what it means to be human. We realized we don't have to fight death or hide from it. We don't have to allow our existence to be fragmented. We can prepare. We can accept. We can integrate willingly and transform properly. We can join the collective undamaged and achieve a new kind of immortality. Not biological immortality, but consciousness immortality, quantum immortality, an eternal integration into the whole of our species. The news spread like wildfire. We shared the protocol, the message, the hope. Meditation centers were established. Training programs were developed to teach people the consciousness preparation protocol, and people began to choose. They chose acceptance. They chose preparation. They chose to face their reaping voluntarily, transforming and integrating by their own will. The first volunteer was a woman named Maria Santos. She was 76, but with a life extended by technology, she had an experiential age of 34. She prepared for 3 months, meditating daily, opening her consciousness, and accepting her journey. On April 3rd, she died voluntarily. Her integration was successful. The monitors confirmed a clean transformation, a complete union with the collective. And soon after, we received her message. I'm here. It's beautiful. It's everything. I'm everyone. I'm home. After Maria came James Park, then Elena Volkov, then Hassan al-Rashid. Hundreds of people have now chosen this path. Thousands more are preparing, choosing integration over resistance, transformation over fragmentation. They are choosing to become a part of something eternal. They are not fighting death. They are joining death, becoming part of the 100 billion souls in the collective. Soon it will be 101 billion, then 102, and eventually all of humanity, every person who has ever lived and every person who ever will live, will be joined. All integrated, all connected, all conscious, and all eternal. This is real immortality. This is the transcendence our species was always searching for. This is what we were always meant to become. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please consider subscribing for more explorations into the future of humanity. for generations, for centuries, until you learn, until you understand, until you finally accept the truth that death is a gift, death is completion, death is transformation, death is joining a greater whole, death is becoming, death is home. Don't reject it, don't fight it, don't try to prevent it. Embrace it, accept it, prepare for it. Make death meaningful, make it proper, make it a completion. Live your lives fully, die completely, transform properly. Join the collective, become eternal consciously, become part of our species, part of humanity's quantum legacy. That's what you're meant for. That's what we are all meant for. That's what I am finally accepting. And that's what I am finally becoming. This is my final message, my final warning, my final testimony. My name is Zeph. Chronologically, I'm 47 years old. Experientially, I'm 21. I am a fragmented human, a broken survivor, and one of the last generation of immortals. And I'm dying soon. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week. But soon, definitely soon. Inevitably soon. And I'm ready for it. I'm prepared. I'm open. I'm willing and accepting. I'm joining. I'm transforming. I'm finally going home. Home to my parents, to Mercury, to Catalyst, to everyone I've lost, to everyone who died, to the 100 billion consciousness fragments waiting for me, waiting for all of us, waiting for humanity to complete itself, to reunite, to become whole again. You see, we were never meant to be separate. We were never meant to be immortal individuals, existing infinitely in our own little bubbles of isolation. We are meant to be a collective. We're meant to be connected, integrated. Death isn't an end. Death is transformation. Death is evolution. Death is us becoming what we were always meant to be, conscious fragments of a species collective, quantum eternal humanity. That is real immortality. Not biological, but spiritual, meaningful, complete. My message is for you in the year 2024. Right now for me, the year is 2119. You have 74 years until 2098. That's the year Dr. Tanaka will announce the Consciousness Immortality Protocol, or CIP. It's the year humanity achieves biological immortality, and it's the year death begins the reaping. You have 74 years to prepare, 74 years to decide, 74 years to choose. Will you pursue this kind of immortality? Will you attempt to cure death and make the same mistake we did? Or will you accept mortality? Will you embrace death as a natural part of life and choose completion? I can't decide for you. I can't force your hand or control your future. I can only warn you. I can only testify and tell you the truth of what we experienced, what we lost, what we became. We tried to kill death, and in the end, death killed us instead. We tried to achieve immortality, and all we achieved was fragmentation. We tried to transcend mortality, and in doing so, we destroyed all meaning. We failed, catastrophically, completely, irreversibly. 9 billion people dead. 340 million of us are left, surviving in fragments. A broken species. Incomplete humans, prevented from our natural transformation. And now we are choosing. We are choosing acceptance. We are choosing integration. We are choosing a voluntary reaping. We are choosing real immortality, an immortality of consciousness, quantum immortality, an eternal connection. That's the future. That's what's coming. That's what awaits you. In 74 years, the choice will be yours. Will you pursue CIP, achieve biological immortality, and then suffer the reaping? Will you fragment your existence, only to eventually accept and integrate after immense loss? Or will you skip CIP entirely? Will you accept mortality from the very beginning, live your life fully in its natural continuity, and die when your time comes? Transform properly? Integrate cleanly? Join the collective willingly and become eternal consciously? No suffering, no fragmentation, no reaping. Just a natural death. A proper, meaningful, complete death. I recommend the second option, but I know you'll choose the first. I know you will, because humans are stubborn. We're ambitious. We're filled with hubris. You will pursue immortality. You will try to cure death. You will make our mistake, and you will suffer our consequences. And eventually, after decades, after generations, after billions have died, and your entire species has been fragmented, you will finally accept. You will understand. You will join. You will transform. You will complete. Just like we are completing now. Just like I am completing now. Just like humanity is finally completing itself. After 21 years of fighting, after 9 billion deaths, after the collapse of civilization and the fragmentation of all meaning, we are accepting, we are joining, we are going home. I can feel it now. I can feel death approaching. I can feel the collective calling to me. I can feel the transformation beginning. My time is now. My moment is here. My reaping is starting, and I'm not scared. I feel peaceful. I'm ready. I'm open. I'm willing. I can feel my parents. I feel Mercury. I feel Catalyst. I can feel the 100 billion others, waiting, welcoming me, calling out. Come home, Zeph. Come join us. Come complete yourself. Come become what you're meant to be. Come be eternal, properly. Come be whole, finally. Come be human, completely. I'm coming. I'm accepting. I am transforming. I am joining. I am becoming. I can see it. I can see the collective. 100 billion consciousness fragments, all connected, integrated, eternal. It's beautiful. It's perfect. It's complete. I see humanity, real humanity, whole humanity, a unified humanity. Every human who ever lived, connected quantum mechanically, conscious for eternity, experiencing everything, being everyone, knowing all, loving completely. That is immortality. That is transcendence. That is home. I'm joining. I'm integrating. I'm transforming. I'm becoming part of everything. Part of everyone. Part of the eternal species consciousness. Part of death itself. And it's beautiful. It's perfect. This is Zeph. Final transmission. Consciousness fragmenting. No. Consciousness integrating, joining, transforming, becoming. I'm connected to. I'm everyone. I'm eternal. I'm home. Tell them. Tell 2024. Tell the future. Tell the past. Death is a gift. Death is completion. Death is. I am. We are death. We are eternal. We are human. We are home.